A look at some of the top stories. Convicted Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell told US officials that a much-rumoured client list does not exist, according to a transcript of her July interview. She said she never witnessed misconduct by Donald Trump and is seeking a pardon while facing accusations of lying to federal officials. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accuses Moscow of doing everything it can to avoid a meeting with Vladimir Putin, despite US efforts to broker talks. Donald Trump calls the war the toughest challenge he's faced, while Russia's Sergei Lavrov insists Putin is only ready to meet if a proper agenda exists. President Donald Trump warned he could impose massive sanctions or massive tariffs on Russia if there is no progress towards peace in Ukraine within 2 weeks. The threat comes just days after his meeting with President Vladimir Putin in Alaska, as Trump signals growing frustration with Moscow. Hamas has denounced Defense Minister Israel Katz is warning that Gaza City will be destroyed if the group does not disarm and free all hostages, calling his words a confession of ethnic cleansing. The comments come as Israel approves plans for a massive assault on Gaza City. Guinea's ruling junta has suspended 3 main political parties for 3 months ahead of a campaign to rewrite the constitution. The decision comes as parties and civil society groups prepare September protests against what they call a power grab by the junta leader general. Texas lawmakers have approved a new electoral map creating 5 Republican-leaning districts aimed at helping the party retain control of Congress in next year's midterms. A Democratic filibuster attempt was blocked by a Republican procedural move, and the plan now awaits the governor's signature. The Dutch foreign minister resigned, saying he disagreed with his caretaker government's refusal to back tougher measures against Israel. The resignation comes as Israel presses a military offensive to seize Gaza and final approval for a settlement that would split the West Bank. The British government has pushed its deadline to October to decide on China's proposal for Europe's largest embassy in London, amid questions over blacked-out sections in the plans. The project has been stalled for 3 years due to strong opposition from residents, lawmakers, and Hong Kong pro-democracy campaigners. We start this hour in West Asia, where heavy smoke rose over Deir al-Balah, Gaza, after an Israeli airstrike. However, the Gaza health authorities reported no immediate casualties. Israel's security cabinet, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has approved the plan to seize Gaza City earlier this month, despite urgent calls from many of Israel's closest allies to reconsider. The Israeli Defense Forces so far have declined to comment on its operations, but Israel Army Radio reported the offensive has begun. It said the IDF's Golani Brigade launched a ground maneuver in southern Deir al-Balah following aerial and artillery strikes last night. The Israeli military have instructed Palestinians to leave an area of around 6 square kilometers and also dropped thousands of leaflets over Deir al-Balah. The Hostage Families Forum said that it was deeply concerned by the reports of the assault. Let's hear what a resident had to say on the issue.
قاعدين عادي في شغلنا، جانا تعميم انه في اقلاع للحاره كلها. جينا خلينا عيالنا واولادنا. بعد بنص ساعه قالوا ما يهتمش حد في الموجود في المنطقه كليتها. تم ضرب دار شو اسمه بجياب، وزي ما انت شايف ما ضلش ولا بيت ولا دار سطح ولا دار تانك ولا ضل. انت بتهدد قاعده تشريع غزه، هوش ضل في غزه اساسا، ما ضلش فيها غزه حاجه، لغار البحر اللي قدامنا وكمان بيت اللي ضل في هالمخيمات، ما ضلش في حاجه في غزه. انت بتحكي عن 70-80% مشتحين غزه، مسكرين معابر، مسكرين اكل شرب منفس، ما حياه اطفال، حتى الاطفال كمان ما لهمش حياه اللي يعيشوها. طلش فيها تهدد على اي اساس؟ ما انت مش تعغز.
We're now joined by Matti Zaweg, who's a geopolitical expert, and he joins us live from Israel. Matti, as always, pleasure to have you on the programme. Matti, there has been some concerns mainly by hostage families and, of course, Israel's closest allies around the world who have raised their concerns about this operation. Firstly, let's talk about the area of Deir al-Balah and why these hostage families are concerned in Israel's actions in going into that particular part of the Gaza Strip.
Well, most of the families fear what was informed from the government themselves, that most of the hostages, they think they are in the area of Deir al-Balah. But the offensive started already 1 month ago, and they didn't enter inside, especially because of this fear. Together with this, you have also the full offensive that they're talking about more than 1 week from the government, that they're going to enter and try to conquer complete the city of Gaza, asking all the population to move south in order to take, because militarily you have 2 battalions of Hamas terrorists that they are entrenched in these areas. And these are the last 2 battalions that they have to conquer in order to have more or less a full control of the Gaza Strip. And this is what is splitting also the government and also the families and also the whole society. If you are going to a full offensive, you can put in danger the lives of the hostages. And of course, Hamas is playing with this and with the international attention that is I think the first 24/7 broadcasted war in the history of humankind, because this is all the time the news are being released from every minute, what is going on, looking what is going on. And usually, I think if you listen, most of the outlets in the news in the world taking the Hamas narrative as something that is truth. So this is the big problem for Israel, the communicational one, because they don't think they are doing a genocide. They think they're just having a war, and they have to continue this war. And this is also the political thinking and the split of the society about what is going to happen with the hostages.
Matti, of course, Netanyahu cites to destroy Hamas as their #1 objective. Of course, the hostages are extremely important to Israel. However, we have seen hostages killed before by Israeli airstrikes, especially with these concerns being risen by these hostage families. Is this new military offensive the safest and best way to get back the hostages while also destroying Hamas as well?
Let's talk facts. When you say we have seen hostages killed by airstrikes, you don't know, and I don't know. It's only what Hamas say. And from the Israeli point of view, I think there is 1 or 2 that maybe they were killed by airstrikes because of the area they were killed. That's all, from 251. But there is also another fact that in almost 2 years of fighting with Hamas, only 8 hostages have been freed alive in a military way, and all the rest in agreements. So this is also what is splitting the society, and not the government. The government is quite behind what the Netanyahu decides, but that most of things must be according an agreement, because if not, they are going to die. This is very, very painful for a country that really mourns their dead and really wants everyone to be alive and outside. This is not the occasion, you know, in other conflicts, like in Russia, Ukraine, or in Africa. This is very special to Israel. This is an Achilles point, and this is what really splits the society. That's what there have been big manifestations against that. From the other side, people say, if Hamas doesn't want to free the hostages, they don't want to dismantle themselves, they don't want to put an end to this tragedy, why should we trust them? This is the big dilemma for the Israeli side. And also for the Hamas side, we continuously see that they have been Qatar's mediations or Egypt mediations, and you never really listen about the big pressure on them. So what is going to be the outcome of all this? Only the next days will know.
Matti, I just want to go back, and it was confirmed in December that by the Israeli military that they think that 6 hostages were killed in Israeli airstrikes back in 2024 of that final month of the year. Matti, you are staying with us to discuss updates from Europe as we move on. Russian forces have captured the Kleban-Busk and Serend in eastern Ukraine, near a section of the front where the Russian army broke through Ukrainian defenses last week, between the logistics hub of the Podrovsk and the Konstantinivka in the neighboring capital, eastern Dnipropetrovsk region. Russia also captured the village of Novogeorgievka. Moscow's troops first entered the region, previously spared from fighting in July. Despite ongoing peace efforts, Russia continues to claim new territorial gains. Matti joins us once again. Matti, your thoughts on Russia encroaching further and further into Ukrainian territory while also maintaining the stance that it does want peace?
Well, Thomas, we have been talking those last days in different interviews that they don't have really a strong will to sit, Vladimir Putin, to sit in and to put a ceasefire really that will hold, because on the ground he's continued to gain territory, and this is part of this issue. The last Tuesday was called the Black Tuesday for the Ukrainian army, when they lost a lot of territory, and more than 2,000 Ukrainian troops were surrounded south of the Kleban-Busk reservoir. And that's what happened now. They lost this part, and also, they are trying to get all these key places in the area, from one side from Polyansk, and the other side, the Ocheretini supply center itself, that is being taken also from the Russians when they took the city of Avdiivka. And so there are key places that can permit the Russian troops to continue, and in places like Zolotai Kolodes, Rodinsky, and a lot of places that they can put themselves in a situation that can move to the north of Pokrovsk, and to have all the eastern Ukraine conquered in one piece and not in several pieces as it was until now. And then another thing that was happening there, there was the Azov Brigade. Azov Brigade, if you remember, it was very criticized in the past for the far-right point of view, but then they merged into the general Ukrainian army, being a big part of it.
Yes.
And they were the ones that lost now. And this is a blow for Zelensky, of course, and for Ukraine. And this is another card in the hands of Vladimir Putin to say, you have to receive my conditions in a future negotiation.
Matti, of course, these negotiations are going on, and they're at the forefront of everyone's mind following this. What are the most important territories when it comes to this conflict? What does Russia have? What does it not have for people that don't know?
Well, they are taking territories that can complete the conquer of Donetsk and Lugansk and all the east, but also to have exits to important places like Kramatorsk, like the city of Sumy, and in the south to the way of Odessa, and so on. So they want to be best positioned in the ground in the case that they are going to stop. And this is a double threat for the Ukrainians. Once militarily, because in the future, if this is not going to hold some kind of ceasefire or peace agreement, they can renew the fights and conquer easily another cities and maybe split Ukraine in two. And this is one. And second one, that is also a continuous threat for the future of Ukraine itself as a country that sees in any borders that they will be agreed part of a future Europe or a future bigger cooperation with Europe that cannot in this moment fulfill their companionship as the NATO membership and continue defending Ukraine, and all this in the frame of a position of Trump that is given more and more time to Putin to think about it. And in all this time, they are conquering more and more territories. And then you are asking yourself, what is the goal of all this?
Mati Zaweg, thank you very much for that analysis. Thank you very much for taking the time and talking to us here on the programme. Now, for our next story, let's move over to North America, where the Justice Department has released the transcript and audio of its July interview with Ghislaine Maxwell, the imprisoned former associate of Jeffrey Epstein. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, President Donald Trump's former criminal defense lawyer, interviewed Maxwell over the course of 2 days last month. Maxwell, who was convicted in 2021 of recruiting and grooming teenage girls to be sexually abused by the late financier, insisted in the interview that she never witnessed Trump do anything inappropriate. In a separate line of questioning, she said former President Bill Clinton never went to Epstein's island. Asked about a client list, Maxwell was adamant that no such document exists and that Epstein did not keep a black book with the names of famous people that he knew. Let's in fact listen to the portions of the interview audio clip.
Did you ever observe President Trump receive a massage?
Never.
Did you ever observe, you said that you were, I mean, have you seen there's photographs, public photographs of Mr. Epstein and President Trump together?
Yes.
And there's photographs of, I think you're in some of the photographs as well. Those all appear to be social settings.
Yes. That's my memory. There were social settings. I don't know Epstein's, if he had, whatever the nature of the president's friendship, if you will, or however you want to define that with Epstein, I was never witness. I think they were friendly, like people are in social settings. I don't think they were close friends, or I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. I actually never saw the president in any type of massage setting. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects.
And did you ever hear Mr. Epstein or anybody say that President Trump had done anything inappropriate with masseuses or with anybody in your world?
Absolutely never. In any context.
There's been a lot of conversations about whether Mr. Epstein maintained like a list of people, like a book of famous people that he knew, it's called a black book or a client list or a list. Did you know of the existence of any such list?
There is no list. We'll start with that. The genesis of that story I can actually trace for you from its absolute inception, if that is what you're interested in.
Well, first, to be sure, there is no list, there's no client list, nothing like that.
No, there's nothing like
that. You know.
Well, fascinating development there. We're now joined by Andrew Latham, who's a professor of international relations, and he joins us live from Minnesota to discuss this further. Andrew, thank you very much for joining us. As we heard there, Andrew, Ghislaine Maxwell saying that Donald Trump has done nothing wrong, or at least as far as she knows. Do you think that significant audio clip there from an interview is enough for Donald Trump to get trust back with not only Democrats, but also, of course, Republicans?
Well, I'm not sure. On the one hand, the Russia hoax, as he likes to call it, went away eventually. And at the time, a few years back, that was meant to discredit him in all sorts of ways. And if people were inclined to believe it, they believed it. And if people were not inclined to believe it, they didn't. And then there were people in the middle who were pulled one way or the other. But by and large, that has been consigned to the dustbin of history. It's not a thing anymore. And I think we're, with this Epstein case, we're in a similar position. If you were inclined to believe that Trump was up to no good, and that he was guilty of all kinds of sexual misconduct and whatnot, then you would believe that. And you probably still believe that. But there are cracks now emerging in that narrative, providing she's telling the truth, of course. She was under oath. It was an official interview. It's not to say that people haven't lied under similar circumstances. But if she's telling the truth, or if people are inclined to believe she's telling the truth, then I think this particular story, which already has faded from the headlines, is about to be buried forever.
Now, Andrew, this seemingly was a bipartisan issue, both Democrats and Republicans uniting together behind this. As you said, Donald Trump wanted this out of the headlines ASAP. How is American media covering this now? Has this fallen out of the headlines, or is this still prominent on the polarizing American news networks as it was previously?
It's not exactly the same, but it is rhyming in a sense that it's back. People are talking about it, not just in the U.S., but abroad as well. Is it going to have the same traction? Is it going to be polarizing to quite the same degree? I don't think so. I don't think it has those legs, as it were, this time around. I think this will be a blip. It will remind people of what they thought back in the day, or for some people it'll be news in the sense they never heard of any of this before. I think it will be less the story has lost its attraction within the Republican Party, I would say. It's not that people have rallied entirely behind President Trump in that party, but they're less inclined, there are fewer Republicans inclined to take this as ammunition, as it were, to use against him. So I think a week from now, this will be a story that is where it was a week ago, which is to say, more history than current affairs.
Andrew Latham, thank you very much for giving us the updates and your insight on that, and thank you very much for taking the time. We now move on once again, and we stay in the United States, where the Lyle Menendez was denied parole just one day after his brother Eric, marking a major delay in their release after over 30 years in prison. Both were convicted of killing their parents in 1989, claiming self-defense after years of abuse. During Lyle's hearing, the board acknowledged his positive efforts in prison, like earning a degree and helping fellow inmates, but noted his history of deception, manipulation, and breaking prison rules, especially his use of illicit cell phones. The board expressed concern over his public risk, citing antisocial traits. Lyle can reapply in 3 years, potentially sooner with good behaviour. Meanwhile, Governor Gavin Newsom is considering clemency requests, and the brothers are seeking a new trial based on new evidence of childhood abuse. The Menendez family continues to advocate for their release. And we're now joined by Asuma Katauka, my colleague and correspondent, to give us a bit more context on this situation. Asuma, what more can you tell us about this case?
Yes, Thomas, as you have also mentioned, that the brothers who are convicted of homicide charges of their own parents, as they cite the reason as sexual and emotional abuse for their entire life, including their entire childhood, when they were both prosecuted for these charges 3 decades ago. Earlier this year, after a lot of public calling for hearing for these sentences, they were given resentencing, and first they were in imprisonment for lifetime, but the resentencing earlier this year gave them a chance to file for parole. However, this was rejected after 11 hours of hearing yesterday by the judge, citing that poor decision making of Lyle Menendez and a poor decision making, including his actions in the jail. However, this can again be judged in 3 years. The next parole judgment will be after 3 years. However, if they behave well, then it can be reduced to 18 months after this. So after 18 months, we might see this judgment again, and maybe this time it will be a different result. However, for now, they are both in prison even after 3 decades, and they got some fame after the Netflix documentary was released on their story and highlighting how they this was a revenge killing on their parents. But the judge also, while handling them the results of no parole, however, this time they did reaffirm them that they have seen improvement in their behavior inside of jail, and this will evolve.
Yes, thank you very much, Asuma, for bringing us that context. We now move over to Europe, where wildfires in northwest Spain have devastated homes, farmland and forests, burning over 400,000 hectares and leaving several areas in ruins, authorities have confirmed. In Jarilla, Spain's Extremadura region, the fires have been largely brought under control after burning for more than 10 days. Firefighters are now focusing on clearing and reinforcing the fire perimeter to prevent reignition, with international teams, including more than 60 firefighters from France, also assisting local efforts. Let's now listen in to what the head of Jarilla Forest Fire Emergency Command had to say on the progress made so far.
Ahora mismo las labores que se están haciendo con los retenes nuestros y bueno, toda la ayuda que estamos recibiendo de distintas administraciones se concentran en rematar el perímetro del incendio. Es decir, evitar que el incendio pueda volver a reproducirse. Y en eso estamos. Lo que pasa es que es un incendio muy grande, con muchísimo perímetro. Estamos hablando de 160 kilómetros de perímetro y tiene mucho trabajo por delante. Esto nos costará días, incluso me atrevería a decirte que semanas, para rematar completamente este incendio.
Meanwhile, roads have reopened, power has been restored, and residents are returning to begin cleanup. Let's listen in to what some of them said.
La luz habían cortado, pero la luz enseguida la arreglaron. Y el agua no entró en los depósitos no entró el agua. Pero ahí mismo la alcaldesa repartió todo el agua que la quisiera, que fuera la centimilita por el agua.
Que habían dado zonas desfavorecidas, que el gobierno ayudaría a lo que pudiera echar una mano.
This year's wildfires are the worst Spain has seen so far and has claimed 4 lives already. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has promised international support and announced a new interministerial commission on climate change amid ongoing protests over fire management and prevention policies. We are once again joined by Desmond Majekodumi. He's an environmentalist and he joins us live from Lagos. Thank you very much for joining us, Desmond, as always. I want to move on. This has obviously been an ongoing situation now for weeks, especially in the European region, with the continent heating up so much. However, let's talk about the Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, who has taken a serious step here environmentally. How important do you think it is that governments respond to this quickly and efficiently?
It's absolutely essential that the governments have to do this. They have to remember the job description. They are civil servants. They're there to serve the population of their country. And he has done a wonderful thing by really, really pushing this. And I hear that he's getting a lot of support across the parties there. They realize this is an emergency. And not only is it just an emergency, it has been classified by over 90% of global scientists as the biggest emergency humanity has ever faced. So they're tackling it in the right way now. They need to do all the necessary things. Of course, the major one is stop what's causing the problem in the first place. The massive, massive pollution of the heat trapping gases. We're still doing this, and the earth is getting hotter. So you're getting massive rainfall in one area, you're getting massive dryers and fires in the other areas. So they're on the right track. Government need to really serve the people far more effectively, because they shall be held accountable. This is one of the universal laws of nature. It's called karma.
Desmond, thank you very much for that rundown. Pleasure, and thank you for taking the time. Well, that is all that we have time for. We will continue to bring